3, 2, 1.
Cue music.
This is Movies First with Alex First.
The zombie apocalypse is alive and well, and so much more besides. That's the essence of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. The film starts with a young orphan girl called Claire Redfield, plagued by visions of a presence. She's looked after as best she can be by her slightly older brother Chris. Both are residents of Raccoon City Orphanage. They were left alone when their parents died in a car accident. At the time, Claire was just 8 years of age. Then we cut to 1998, and Claire, played by Scodelario, is hitching a ride back to Raccoon City with a lecherous, slimy trucker, played by Pat Thornton. It's night time, and rain is bucketing down. Taking his eyes off the road, the trucker ploughs into a woman, seemingly killing her. But the next moment, she's disappeared. It turns out that Claire escaped from the orphanage and she hasn't seen her brother, played by Robbie Amell, for 5 years, from whom she's become estranged. Chris is now a policeman at the Raccoon City Police Department. Raccoon City itself has been largely abandoned. For years it was the mainstay of pharmaceutical giant Umbrella Corporation, but it's relocated and there are now few people left in town. The place is a dying Midwestern wasteland. When Claire arrives on her brother's doorstep, she immediately spots a couple of bizarre-looking people acting strangely. She's convinced there's a lot more going on than her brother is aware of, and that's just how things turn out. But just how twisted only becomes clear in the latter half of the movie. The town is being overrun by the living dead, and the police department is in their sights. There's also a link to the orphanage where Claire resided, and before this is over, she'll have to go back there. Most of the action, save for when Claire was a child, takes place from late one night until 6 a.m. the next morning.
You're listening to Movies First. For more, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
The action horror film series Resident Evil, based on a Japanese video game franchise, kicked off in 2002. And over the next 14 years, a further 5 films were made in the franchise. Welcome to Raccoon City is an origin story and marks a reboot of the Resident Evil films. I found the setup intriguing. I speak of the establishment of the premise at the orphanage and Claire's less than welcome arrival back in town as an adult. Many of the threads are deliberately loose, so audience members new to the don't really understand what's going down until much later in the piece. Theatrical device that succeeds in maintaining interest and involvement. The air of misgiving created by the filmmakers, led by writer and director Johannes Roberts, through the visual and audio mediums is palpable. There are shocks, and the tropes of the horror genre are prominent throughout. The first sign of concern on my part, though, came with the entrance of the local police chief, who overacts to the billio. That's certainly not cool and stands out like a sore thumb. Whether that's deliberate or otherwise, the damage is done. Then, as is unfortunately too often the case, the plot devolves into totally far-fetched nonsense. Exaggeration is the name of the game, mostly. The antithesis of that is a young girl who, spoiler alert, loses her parents. At first, she's scared out of her wits, but in a split second moves on with her life as if nothing has happened. If you're prepared to suspend any sense of credibility and accept the chilling ride for what it is, lowbrow popcorn escapism, you can still get enough out of Resident Evil. As far as characters are concerned, Scodelario comes out of this well as the calm and composed Claire. Resident Evil plays primarily to a familiar audience that appreciates this genre. Welcome to Raccoon City scores a 6 out of 10.
You've been listening to Movies First with Alex First.
Available at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Radio, or your favourite podcast player. You can also stream on demand at Bytes.com.
This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.